G'day Bomber fans and any other fans that have joined. The draft coverage begins now. In the next week or two, I'm going to be showing you guys who the best players in this draft are from every position on the ground. Today, it's all about the key forwards. We're highlighting the 10 best key forwards in the open market. These are the guys that we could potentially take in the draft. No one linked to other clubs. And that way, we can all be familiar with the names that we could be linked with. It's a great year for key forwards. It starts out really strong with a potential top 10 option. And then from there, it's really, really deep. They're about 4 to 5 or even 6 players that could go in that late first, second round stage. So there's a lot of talent here. Let's get right into this video. Let me know down below who your favourite key forward of this draft crop is and whether we should bring them into the club, but let's get into it. Starting out strong at the top of the order with Harry Armstrong. This is a guy that many Bomber fans were dreaming of taking before Isaac Kako in the draft, I guess because he's Kako's teammate at Vic Metro. He's a supremely talented player, and fair enough, he's widely considered to be the best key forward in this draft. I got to agree, I think he's an absolute gem. He's a potential top 10 pick. He's a really well-rounded, left-footed tall. He draws comparisons to Jeremy Cameron, not just because of his kicking skills on his left, both at goal and around the ground, but because he loves to push up the field and lend a hand as that outlet marking target. Armstrong isn't that flashy, high-marking forward. He's not going to give you an outrageous highlights reel, but he just goes out and gets the job done. He's super trustworthy. He's probably the most trustworthy key forward I've seen in a draft in the last few years. He's a great converter in front of goal. He finishes off hard work. He rarely frustrates you. He's consistent, whether it's deep in the forward line kicking goals or up the field in open play. I think he's going to be a really great player. He's gone long before our first pick, I reckon, though. So if he slides past the Kako bid, I'd be happy with the club trying to trade up to get him in, but I doubt that happens. I think he's gone before Kako, and I don't think we're going to be getting him in the draft. We'll be looking at other key forwards on draft night. Whoever gets Armstrong, though, is a very lucky club. Next up is someone we should be pretty familiar with, Jobe Shanahan. He was the flavour of the month back in August, I think it was. He was fresh off hauls in the VFL for Essendon's reserve side. So he's already played with some guys on our list and played well. That is a tick. He kicked double the amount of goals of Peter Wright that game. He kicked 5 goals against Coburg. That's not an easy feat at all, especially as a 17-year-old. But part of what makes Shanahan really great right now is the fact that he's more developed than he should be. He's physically strong and a really good contester. I like his pack crashing. In the National Championship, he showed that off. He was awarded an All-Australian jacket for his campaign. Shanahan is nowhere near as rounded as Armstrong as a player. His roles aren't as versatile and he's not as clinical, but he's a really promising and almost ready-made lead out the goal square forward. He's good in the air. He creates distance between himself and his opponent really nicely. So if you look at his highlights reel and see a bunch of chest marks inside 50, that is why. He's very good at that initial body contact to give himself a head start and that space that he needs. His forward craft is underrated. He's almost he is a top 20 pick, I reckon. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go in the first round, and he may well be the type of player we trade up to get. I wouldn't say no. He is New South Wales born though, so there's always that go home factor there, but 11 goals in 3 VFL games. It's hard not to pick him if he's available. He's shown plenty to like so far. Okay, Jonty Faull. Now, I'm excited about him. This is a guy that I've really wanted to talk about for a while on this channel, and now I get an excuse to. You know when there are players that you really like the look of in a draft year? Last year for me it was Logan Morris. I really liked him. I spoke about him a lot on the channel before I knew we'd trade up to get Caddy. This year that player is Jonty Faull. He's the same range as Jobe Shanahan. Very similar players, possible first rounder, and he hasn't even really set the world alight this year with his performances, so there is room to grow. He's had some injury issues here and there, but I really like when players produce good bottom and top age campaigns. He was brilliant last year at the end of the season, and he's shown that brilliance at stages this year too. That means his form at his best isn't a fluke. This is a guy we really should be watching out for. So what would Faull bring to our forward line? Well, he's got super sticky hands. He's a really good solid clunk. He, like Shanahan, can crash a pack or two. He's very strong, very solid, very built. Still good on ground level though. It's not a massive draw card, his game on ground level, but he is mobile enough, I guess, despite his strength. And I don't know if you get that as much from Shanahan as you do with Faull. He isn't Caddy level mobile, but I think the two of them together, Caddy and Faull, would blend really nicely and pair together to move around the ground and be dangerous in the air inside 50. I really, really like Jonty Faull. I would like him on our list. If he's available in the second round, I'd be happy trading up to get him. But there are plenty of good key forwards if we do miss out on him. This isn't the last of the guys I'd want to trade up for, but he may or may not be my favourite after Harry Armstrong. Jack Whitlock is a very hyped player this year. At his best, he was being talked about as a top 10 talent, I reckon. There was a little period midway through the season, I think he was fresh off a massive goal haul and everyone was just talking about him. He dropped off a tad, but still a great season from him. As you can see on screen, he's very tall, Whitlock. He's 2 centimeters tall, and he's shown he can roll through the ruck, which is ideal for a player that tall. It means defenders have to peel off him inside 50 if he takes stoppages, giving us an extra ruck outside of D50 to be a marking threat on rebound. So he brings others into the game, which is good, but he's also just a menace for defenders on his own because of those long arms. So his timing and craft isn't as good as the guys I've spoken of below, but he will outmark opponents at least once a game because of just the sheer size of him. He's a great contested mark, and he's only going to get better with size and maturity. I think the most promising thing about Whitlock is the fact that he's still pretty unproven as a player. I wouldn't say raw, but he definitely has a lot of room to grow, which is both, I guess, a negative for those wanting ready-made talent to impact soon. But if you give him time, he can definitely build into a good player. That's the thing with Whitlock. He'll take a bit of time to get to his best, and I don't know if we're the club to be picking up another 2-meter project player. We have quite a few of those around. All right, maybe another raw player up next. Another one who can roll through in the ruck, though, and one that I'm pretty excited about, Tom Sims. He is the teammate of Harry Armstrong, which also means he's the teammate of Isaac Kako, so that is good. Chemistry built there already. He's 199 centimeters tall, so again, he's a menace to defenders. He's very athletic. That size surprises you when you watch him play because he moves really, really nicely, and he's fairly, well, not even fairly agile, he's just agile. I actually don't mind him on ground level for his size, and that is a big tick for someone that tall, when you can play in the ruck but also be okay on ground level. I think Sims is great in so many areas. He's a really good marking target. He leads out really nicely and puts himself on the end of some inside 50s quite often, even when he's a teammate of a better forward, so that's promising. He's also got heaps of upside and can only get better. I and many are maybe a tad worried about his conversion in front of goals. He's not great, but I guess he needs to work on his set shot kicking and maybe even decision making in the front half, but that is a good problem to have early in your career. That is the type of thing you can really fix in an AFL system with time. Much like Isaac Kako, he's not amazing in front of goals, or even Nick Watson at Hawthorn, but they get better over time. If we haven't taken a key forward by our first pick, this is a guy we could easily look at with our first selection if he's available. He could be available at pick 35 or 40. I can see him sliding, and that shows just how deep this draft is. I reckon he was well inside that top 30 last year. The talk of the town lately has been Gabriel Stumpf. He tore up at the combine. This is a later draft option, or maybe a Hail Mary kind of pick earlier, maybe in the late 30s, early 40s, if we have a pick available and want someone, I guess, athletic. And I guess that's what you get with Stumpf. His athleticism is unmatched. He's arguably the most athletic player in the whole draft. He's 196 centimeters tall, so tall marking target. He is lightning fast. He was the fastest at the combine, best vertical leap at the combine. He's just a natural athlete who is still a fair way off being a natural footballer. He'll take time and work. He's still not the most skilled or talented player, but he is incredibly hardworking. He's incredibly gifted athletically. He would cause absolute havoc if he managed to put it all together. This is a guy that could easily flop. I wouldn't be surprised. He could just be an athlete, but there is a ceiling there that we don't really have a gauge on just yet. His athletic profile helps with that. I think he's someone who could, I guess, you could take a punt on if we've already got a bunch of key forwards on the list, but right now we only have 4. We've got Caddy, Jones, Wright, and Langford. I think if we get another, it should be someone higher up the draft order who we can play sooner rather than later. I think Stumpf might take a bit of time, but there is definitely potential here. All right, we have a South Aussie. We're getting to that later stage of the draft now, so these are the guys that are more in the range of that 3rd round, I'd say, but any other year it will be higher. So Charlie Nicholls, he's 197 centimeters. He's another one who's got really good speed and mobility. You love a key forward who can create that distance between a defender, not through strength, but through acceleration, and Nicholls does that. It means once they navigate the craft and physicality, he's going to be harder to contain. Charlie Curnow is a great example of that combination of both speed and strength separating defender from attacker. Nicholls isn't that just yet. He's lean and not really someone you could kick the ball on the head of in a one-on-one, but he is really mobile and can accelerate to get that extra step needed for a mark inside 50, so that is good. He was actually the 8th fastest player at the National Combine and the 2nd fastest key forward, so that shows you that. He's a nice kick as well from what I've seen, even just around the ground. He isn't untrustworthy, so that is a tick. I like his ceiling. It's good when a leaner player is performing well because it makes you wonder what some muscle will do to help. In another year, he's probably a top 35 player, to be honest, but just because of the range of the forwards in that 2nd round, he's bumped down a bit and I can see him sliding, but I just know a club will take him and probably turn him into a good player. Maybe Essendon, maybe not. Floyd Burmeister is another really athletic key forward. That's what you get around this range of the draft, athleticism. He's 199 centimeters tall, but again, again, very quick, very agile, really fun to watch. He's a skinny boy, but he moves really nicely around the field. He glides around, as you hear me say a lot on this channel. He can play ruck. You'd hope he can play ruck with that size, but he has long arms that can help in a contest. He is a little bit chaotic. Sometimes you question just what he's doing. He's definitely going to frustrate fans with early performances, but again, that's the story of this late stage of the draft. It's upside. His ceiling is hard to read, and that's exciting. He's just so athletic, so tall, so mobile, but also so raw. This is a player you take in and develop over a few years. He's not going to play footy AFL next year. He isn't ready to play AFL, and he might not even be ready to play AFL in 2026. Who knows? But this guy will take a lot of time. It's that upside, though, that'll have many thinking he's worth it. I really like his attitude. His attack on the ball is really good. He's tough. That is what you like to see. Bailey McKenzie. Now, this is an interesting player that I don't see talked about much. He's a smaller forward. He's 191 centimetres tall, but he often plays out of the goal square. He leads up the field, a bit like Carl Langford. He's a very similar player. And despite his size, he's actually quite good in the air. So there's quite a lot to like about this guy, and I feel like he's a bit underrated almost. He doesn't get spoken about as a key forward despite playing like one. He's got great leading patterns. He takes it out in the hands, out front of his chest well. But even if he drops it to ground level, he's 191 centimetres. That centre of gravity will outdo most key defenders that are playing on him, but he's too good in the air for a smaller defender. He's a really awkward player to match up on, and that shows with some of his performances. He kicked 7 goals against GWS's academy. He kicked 6 goals against Dandenong. He's a proven goal scorer. 27 goals in 10 Talent League games is very good. He's a really smart and creative key forward who uses his size to his advantage, very much like Carl Langford. This is someone who probably watches a lot of Carl Langford, to be honest, because they play in quite similar ways, and if he was taken by the Bombers, he could learn under Langford that craft. I like him, a later draft option. And finally, Charlie West, 194 centimetres. He's not talked about much again, like with McKenzie, but this guy has shown enough to be on an AFL list. He's also out of South Australia, like Nicholls, who I spoke of earlier, so there'd be a go-home factor there if we were to draft him potentially. I could see him going in the rookie draft, sliding to there, and if he does, it's worth any team picking him up. Any other year, he'd be gone in the open market in the national draft, but again, this is a deep draft for key forwards. West is a promising key forward who's got really good physical attributes matched by a really strong mentality. Of the guys I've spoken of today, the ones I admire most for their work rate and mentality are Harry Armstrong, Jonty Faull, maybe Tom Sims as well. Probably someone else I'm forgetting just off the top of my head, but throw Charlie West in that list as well. He is tough, he is aggressive, once or twice maybe too aggressive, but I like a bit of no-nonsense play in a forward. His skills aren't great, but his ability to create a marking contest out of nothing is awesome. So he's the last of the key forwards I'll talk about today. And that is that. That is the first of this little draft series that I'll be putting out there. Next up, I'm going to tackle the key defenders. As I said, we're going to go through every position and then some. There's lots of draft content coming your way, so stay tuned to that. Let me know who you like the most out of these guys I spoke of. I personally obviously really like Armstrong. I'm a big fan of Shanahan and Jonty Faull. Trading up to them could be worth it, and then if he slides Tom Sims, he looks like a player. But yeah, let me know your favourites down below. Like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to stay up to date with all these draft videos, and go Bombers.